My name is Lize Odendal, and I live in Cape Town, South Africa. My father was a university professor and my mother a librarian and a housewife. I grew up in Stellenbosch, which is in the wine area of the Cape Province, sort of right in the heart there. And you will always see me with my nose in a book, especially if it is a crime novel with a very, very complicated plot. I also love plants, flowers, gardening, and I really like cooking. I love to travel. That's my passion in life. And I've traveled and worked right around the world virtually. I've worked in Zimbabwe with international movie stars, and I've worked in Zambia, I've worked in Lesotho. I have traveled to Egypt, Ethiopia, I've traveled to India and China. I've traveled to, Dubai, Hong Kong. In Southeast Asia, I've been to the Philippines, I've been to Vietnam, I've been to Thailand, I've been to Cambodia, and Europe, of course, as well, and Turkey. I have a BA degree from the University of Stellenbosch, and my degree is in English. I went on to study for a further year, and for that I received my honours degree in journalism. Of course, I have a CELTA certification, which means that I can teach English as a second language. I also have a TKT Module 1 qualification, and that means I can teach grammar. Then I have a certification that I got in Barcelona in Spain for e-moderation, and another certificate from the same people for using technology in the classroom. I started teaching ESL in 2002 when I moved to northeast China, to Liaoning province, where I taught in the small town of Anshan. The classrooms there were quite basic. We had a blackboard and chalk. I also taught grown-ups. Then from Anshan I moved on to Costa Rica, where I taught in San Jose, which is the capital of Costa Rica, at Instituto Británico. I taught children and corporate clients. Then in 2008 I went back to Shanghai. But this time I joined EF English first in their curriculum development team. We developed the materials and the books that they would use in their classrooms, as well as the curriculum and the material and the PowerPoints that they would use for online teaching, which is a very big part of their job. I did that for 4 years, and in that time I actually kept on teaching on a weekly basis because I didn't want to lose my touch in the classroom. I did that by joining a charity group with the name of Stepping Stones. And Stepping Stones were working with the children from migrant workers. I guess at the end of the day, you can say that I know a classroom inside out, from the materials to the teaching to the final results. I believe that the only way to work with that number of learners are to actually split them into groups and to use peer learning in those groups. Once you split the students into groups, that group then chooses a leader, and that leader is the person who reports back into the feedback loop after we've done our exercises. I also like to mix strong with weaker students so that the stronger students can help the weaker students, and this is where the peer learning comes in. I strongly believe, and I've seen in my experience, that when students work with each other, they learn faster, and it seems to be as if they enjoy the experience more. I believe the reason for that is because they don't have the teacher hovering over them all the time. Some of the activities that I do in a big group is think, learn, share. The students would be put into their various groups, and I do vary the groups. It's not always exactly the same group, so that the poor leader has to do everything and everybody else just, goes around for the ride. I do vary the groups. Then you give them a set task. The students get time to think about that task. They then write down what they think, and then they go into the big group and they share. You have to show your group mate what makes the past tense. How would you tell them what makes the past tense? Help each other figure out how they would teach to somebody else to do the past tense, for instance. Not difficult for me. Actually, I'm extremely curious. That's my thing. I always want to know everything about everybody. When I went to China for the first time, to Anshan, I loved the local life that was going on around me. I would walk downstairs from my apartment building and just start helping the old lady who was drying vegetables on the sidewalk. I just loved that about Northeast China, that it was so easy, even though I didn't speak Mandarin or the local dialect, that I could be friends with people. My colleagues invited me to their homes. In Costa Rica, the same thing happened to me. I very soon became friends with a local artist's family who also had a lot of architects in the family. And they would take me on the most interesting excursions in Costa Rica to go to various little towns where the architect, for instance, had decorated a church with mosaics. It was really, really interesting. And the family, for instance, also took me to their little finca. Now, a finca is what they call a small farm, and their small farm happened to be a coffee farm. And I have to admit, still to this day, I drink Costa Rican coffee that I buy at my local supermarket. The coffee is just something else. When I got to Shanghai, the immersion in the culture for me was slightly different. Because I knew so much about China already, it took me a little bit of time to settle into how big Shanghai was. It's a bit scary to be between 21 million people all the time. So I made a point of asking my students and asking my colleagues if they could refer me to small shops. And I subsequently started to actually collect this kind of handcraft. One of the biggest lessons that teaching has taught me is to be patient. Now, as you know, I'm a gardener and I love plants. If you come and look for my flat, always look for the one with the plants on the balcony and the plants coming out of the front door. Gardening and working with plants have taught me that things will happen when they have to happen. Just like this flower. This flower opened when it was its time to open. It's not going to open before or after. It's going to open when it's time. And for me, that's such an important lesson with my students. My students will learn when they learn. They're not going to learn when I'm trying to teach them. They're going to learn when they're ready, and they will not forget what they've learned. So patience is indeed a virtue. It's indeed something that I have had to learn the hard way, that when the time is right, everything will happen. That's me. Thank you for watching, and I'm looking forward to meeting and working with you.